Eddie Gray rose from humble beginnings in Castlemilk to become a Scottish football icon and a Leeds United legend. Ellen Road idol Gray played, coached and twice managed Leeds, who of course have just secured a place back in the Premier League. I'm Derek McGregor and this is One on One, and Ambassador Eddie gives me the inside track on Parag Marath, frontman of club owners 49ers Enterprises, who, with fellow US tycoon Andrew Kavanagh, is about to take full control at Rangers. But Eddie also tells all about his wonderful football life. Eddie, I'm in the presence of greatness.
I don't know about that.
No, I mean, here we are, Ellen Road, Leeds United, amazing club. You, 25 years ago I think it was, you were voted as amongst the top 3 greatest players in the club's history. Yeah. Billy Bremner and John Charles in there as well.
Yeah.
You're the scorer of the goal that many fans rate the greatest in the club's history, 1970 versus Burnley.
Right.
Do you want me to carry on? You quite like that?
No, really. But funny enough, I scored 2 goals that game.
You did?
And the first goal meant more to me. Because the second goal, I never really thought about it. It just happened. But the first goal, I had to control the ball quickly. I seen the goalkeeper off his line and chipped it, you know.
Instinctive.
So that meant more to me. But I can understand why other people think the second goal was the best goal. But
do you think the first one was better?
For me it was.
Aye.
From a technical point of view.
Aye.
Yeah.
I mean, the second one was sensational.
Yeah, it was decent, but...
I mean, it had everything.
Yeah.
I mean, you're left-footed, of course. You're left foot, but you finished it with your right.
Yeah.
But the
I
way
wasn't bad with my right foot.
Well, I was going to say, the way you played, Eddie, it was hard to tell.
Yeah. I was okay. I mean, obviously, my brother Frank was left-footed as well, you know.
Aye.
When my dad was, was young and played, my dad was left-footed, you know. So it carried on the tradition. But it's funny, like, Andrew, Frank's boy, he's right-footed. Archie's right-footed. Harry's right-footed. You don't know how it works, you know.
Is it possible for you to say what this club means to you?
Well, it means everything from the point of view. It's been my life. I mean, I come down here 1963. It's a long time ago. I'd played with the Glasgow schoolboys and the Scottish schoolboys. And I'd been to a few of the big clubs, in England. But I'm a Celtic supporter. I was going to Celtic Park. That was what, I went to visit a few clubs, but with no intention of signing for them. And one day a scout come up called John Barr and he asked me to get into a club called Leeds United. And when he says to me, Leeds United, I says, who? It's true, I'd never heard of them. Because I was a Celtic supporter.
Aye.
They never won anything in England.
Aye.
I knew about the Arsenals and the Man Uniteds and Don Revie's Man City when he played there. And funny enough, I thought I would get down for a weekend and just, for a few
the
days.
Emotions.
Well, just
show them respect. Show them respect.
John was a good man. John came for Still, and John was a really good scout. He ended up, in those days it was only part-time, but he got so many players down, me, my brother, McQueen, Jordan, he got all the Scottish boys down, John.
He knew what he was doing.
Yeah, he became full-time scout here. I made him a full-time scout when I was manager here. John was a lovely man. And I came down, and funny enough, my mum and dad put me on the train in Glasgow, and when I got off the train in Leeds, I seen a fella waiting for me, and it was Don Revie himself. Now, I'd been to clubs and somebody picks you up for the club, a representative.
Aye.
But Don was waiting for me in the station. He took me to a hotel. He says, I'll pick you up in the morning. He picked me up in the morning, and I was across the other side where the car park is now. It used to be training pitches there and the dressing room for all the kids. So I was sitting there with all the so-called trials for all the country.
Aye.
And Don came in and he took me out.
How old were you, Eddie?
I was 14, 15, just turned 15 then. And he says, you're training with me today. So he took me with the first team. And the first thing I did, I picked the ball up and I did a stupid thing. I nutmegged Jack Charlton and he booted me up in the air. Don't do that to me again, you little bee. That was it,
And you didn't?
No, and he says to Don, you've got to sign this boy, he's going to be a player. Because Big Jack was an established player then, So from then on it was...
But did Celtic never come in for you?
Oh yeah. I used to train at the park. And, I remember, my dad and I were Celtic daft, and Sean come up to the ground.
Sean Fallon?
Yeah, and he was talking to my dad. He's got to go to Celtic. But I'd made my mind up as soon as I came to Leeds.
Really?
Yeah, that was the club I wanted to go to. Only because of the manager, you know, like meeting men, what he did. And probably at that particular time, I don't know if you know, Celtic used to farm boys out.
Yeah.
You know, playing for amateur clubs and that.
Yeah.
But, you know,
Kenny Dalglish went to Cumbernauld.
Yeah, I know, but
The
club told me they wouldn't do that with me at Celtic. They says, no, you just come straight onto the staff. And you know, that nearly swayed me. But as soon as I'd met Don Revie, you know, the manager, it was a powerful character, great knowledge of the game. Don, and you know, Don was Footballer of the Year as well, so he could play. I mean, he was only about 35 when I came here, so he used to join in the training sessions, Don. You know, he was a terrific footballer.
Did you ever not make him?
No, you wouldn't do that to Don.
No.
Don was the type of man and manager. It didn't make any difference what company he was in. If he walked into the room and be the centre of attention, you know, he just start here about him, that, you know, that aura.
Presence.
And everybody would, you know, listen. That's why I think that he was such a powerful character here. I mean, it's not a secret, Don ran the club. You know, he ran the whole club. I mean, I've seen him leaving Jack Charlton in London if he's let for a bus. Seen him leaving the chairman in London if he's let for a bus. You know, and he used to moan, and Don used to say to him, listen, when I say 5:30, it means 5:30, not 25 to 6. So that was Don. Don was all powerful here. I mean, he was a great manager. I just think that I think the reason he left, and it was funny how he left, because we just won the league championship.
Yeah.
And he left.
Yeah.
And I think it was because they had this group of players together, you know, for a young age, and you know, it felt to think, you know, I'm going to have to break this team up, and I don't want to do it. I think that's why he left. You know, I mean, we had so many terrific players, you know, with some of the best players that I've ever played the game. I mean, one player at the club who, well, everybody within the club knows he's got a sweetheart here, Norman Hunter. Hunter was one of the great players. You know, people talk about Norman Hunter, bite your legs, Hunter. But Norman was a great footballer, a great footballer. And obviously, the best player I've ever played with was Giles. Johnny Giles was a genius. And he came, it's funny, you know, like how things happen. Johnny came here in '63, the year I joined, I was only 15. Johnny just won the FA Cup with Man United. So a couple of years later, when I got to know him better, I says, John, why did you leave Man United? You know, he just won the FA Cup and come to Leeds United, who were in the all-second division then, you know, as it was.
Yeah.
He says, Eddie, I came because Bobby Collins was there. And he knew if Bobby Collins was there, they'd be doing things right.
Bobby, a Celtic legend as well, of course, wasn't he? Yeah.
And Bobby was, I mean, Bobby was frightening, you know. He ran the whole show, Bobby, for a period of time. I remember when I was 15, you know, you're young, you know, and at half time you used to try and sneak in the corner of the dressing room to listen to what was happening at half time. Things weren't going well. Don was sometimes just stand back, and Bobby would be going, you're useless. All the way around the squad. It's everybody, nobody avoided Bobby's. Bobby was fiery. Now, I'll tell you something that happened to me when I was 15 with Bobby, and he wouldn't get away with it now. Don used to split us into 4 teams, and there were 4 captains. And all the pre-season, you were playing for points, and the winning captain get a prize after that.
That would have been competitive.
Yeah, aye. Well, the most points you could get is winning across country at Roundy Park, where I've just been walking. So Bobby comes up to me, 5'3", fine girl. He realised I could run. I was only 15. I want 20 points after you a day. So I says, Bobby, you're getting 20 points. I'm running around Roundy Park. I'm clearing everybody for buying an old Scottish pro. Did brilliant for our club, Jim Story. You know, and Jim scored a lot of goals, helped the club to get the all-second division. So I'm running, and I've got Story in the back of my pocket. I'm thinking, he's gone. You know, and he's all pro and that. And he says to me, Eddie, we've left him all behind. We run in together and we get 20 points each for our teams. 2 yards to the line, he sprints away from me. So this is true. So Bobby comes in, he sees Story laughing, and Don's killing himself. Don Revie, he's at the winning post, he's the judge. He's killing himself laughing. He asked me what happened, and I told him. He chinned me. Bobby proper chinned me. Never let that happen to you again. That was Bobby.
As we speak, Eddie, the club has just secured its place back in the Premier League, which is fantastic. I mean,
it is,
and I think what's been lovely recently, we've seen the emotion for you in the main stand. You know, your great nephew Harry making his debut at 16.
Yeah.
Tell me about that. How we can see the emotion, but can you explain in words what that means to you?
Well, it's just nice. It's members of the family are still involved in the club. I mean, I remember when I first come down here when I was 15, you know, and no longer after I was here, I says to Don Revie, you know, our Frank's 7 years younger than me. I says to Don, I says, listen, I've got a younger brother in Scotland who's going to go be a player. And he looked at me and says, Eddie, we know all about that. He was 7, 8, you know.
I mean, it's a fantastic family name in football, Eddie. You'll be hugely proud of. You know, your brother Frank.
Yeah.
You know, we've just referred to your great nephews,
Andrew as well,
Archie, Harry, Andy.
Andy. Our Stuart played as well. Obviously, Stuart played with the Celtic.
And he was a good player.
Stuart was a good player,
Eddie.
Stuart had a good career. Stuart did really well when he went down south, because Stuart went to Rushden and Diamonds when they come through all the leagues, and they got into the Football League and they did really well. He done it. Stuart was a good player. Funny enough, when Stuart was young, he had this illness called ulcerated colitis, which actually caught him, you know, later on in life. And because Stuart had tremendous ability, but it took away his pace. You know, because he was quick when he was a kid, you know. Stuart was one of them, he'd get the ball and get by 3 or 4 players.
I saw him at Bournemouth, Eddie. He had a brief loan spell down there.
Yeah.
And I spoke to him a few times, and, you know, great lad and good player. And, you know, we were all...
He had a good career, you know.
We were all deeply saddened by his passing a year ago. But, you know, he's played his part as well in keeping the family name in the game. It's amazing.
Oh, yeah. His boy that lives in Harrogate, Jacob, he's at the academy.
Here?
Aye, at least.
Really?
He's a good player.
What position's he, Eddie?
He'll play up front. They'll play behind the centre forward, Jacob. He's been at the academy for a few years now.
Is there just an endless supply chain of greys?
Well, I don't know.
Is it incredible?
There seems to be a few of them, because, you know, our Andrew, you know, Frank's boy, you know, his boys play as well. You know, they're coming on now, the younger ones, you know. Obviously Archie and, you know, like Harry, you know, but a couple of younger ones as well. They can play.
You're 77 now, Eddie, aren't you?
77, aye.
You're obviously, I mean, in your playing day, you could look after yourself, and you're in part of a dressing room. You had to know about yourself. But see, when we see that softer side of you, when you're reduced to tears, is that just magical? Is it just when you see what's happening in front of you?
Well, it's funny, you know. Like, you think back to, you know, when I was 15 and coming down here, and then you look at the tradition with the family. There's still players called Gray playing at Ellen Road.
It's incredible.
You know, it's terrific. So hopefully there'll be, you know, as I says the other day in my programme notes, I don't think that Harry's the end of the line. I think there'll be a few more, you know. So hopefully there will be for our sake, and the family's sake, and for the club.
Now, what's just as important for us, you'll understand, is are we talking Scotland here? Are they going to play for Scotland? What's happening here?
Well, Archie's already captained England schoolboys, you know, and he'll I think he'll go England.
What happened there, Eddie? How did that happen?
Well,
what happened there?
Asked Andrew. Harry's always threatened to play for Scotland, but he's been with England as well. You know,
really?
He lives in England. Yeah, he's been with the
Eddie, what are you doing? Eddie, what are you doing? Eddie, I mean, come on. What's happening here?
See, the thing about it is, you know, like your kids, they grow up in England, you know, they're English. You know, we'll just have to wait and see how things develop.
Yeah. It's. Have you actually spoken to him? Have you joked with him before in the past about Scotland?
Yeah.
I bet you have.
Yeah, well.
In all seriousness, you would have tried. You would have tried, wouldn't you?
Well, you just mentioned a few things, you know. But I mean, the thing about the boys, you know, like Archie and Harry and all the rest of the boys that played the football. It was a bit different, you know, maybe years ago. They grew up in England and go to school down here, and, you know, Archie's played for the youth teams for England, and Harry's playing now for England's youth teams, and so. It's funny enough, I'd like to think they'd play for Scotland, but they're English and they lived in here, you know.
Of course, look, all you're concerned about is that they have good careers, they love their football, that's the main thing for you, of course, you know. But do you like to think in some kind of way you've been an inspiration for them?
No, you know, like, the thing about it is, the thing I always said to them, and I always did it, you know, people looked upon me as a, you know, sort of, let's say, a skillful player. But I was a hard worker. I worked hard. Yeah. And that's what I try and impress on all the boys. Never forget, work hard. And be as fit as you can to go out and play every game.
Have the younger Greys watched footage of you?
I think they'll have seen a bit yet. You know? Yeah.
The old magic.
You know, you're talking about black and white then.
Well, it's still good. It's still top notch. It's still top notch.
I mean, the thing about it is, I mean, I think the respect to get for the family is good. You know, like, obviously I came here in '63. I'm still here. You know, so it's a long period of time.
You're a big Celtic man. You've got the 49ers Enterprises here. Parag Maras.
I know.
Tell me, have you had chats with him about what's about to happen with Rangers and obviously Parag's involvement soon to be with Rangers?
No, but when it happens, I'll probably walk in here with my green and white scarf on. I'm only joking. No, I mean...
Have you started having a bit of banter already?
No. I just, you know, that's something like, I mean, if that happens, it'll be a progress for both clubs.
They've been here 2 years, Eddie, isn't it? And you can see the effect they've had.
Yeah, I mean, I must say, you know, there was a few things in the press down here recently about the manager being under pressure. Our manager's done terrific. You know.
Yeah.
You know, funny enough, you're a manager of a football club. He's getting paid to do one thing: get us out of this division. He deserves a shout at the big league. Yeah.
How good do you think the 49ers Enterprise has been for Leeds United? I think it's 2 years coming up.
The thing about it is, it's still in its early stages when you actually think about the whole thing.
Yeah.
So, you know, this is where we'll find out now when we move into the big league. Because we, you know, obviously, you know, we've done well in the Championship, but when you're moving up that notch, that's when you'll know what the investment's going to be. And we'll need investment if we're going to survive for, you know, in the big league, or like, you know, Leeds is one of the biggest cities in England. If we're going to be where, you know, like a club was in the past, challenging for honours and banging at the door for Europe every year, you know, in a period of time we played in Europe for about 8-9 years in the trot. You know, because we were always up there. We won league championships, we won the League Cup, we won the FA Cup, we won European trophies. And that's the standard that the club will be trying to set. And I think that's the thing. I think sometimes it helps the players now, because it's not as if they've just come in. I was talking to Gary McAllister last night. Gary was at the game, and him and Gordon Strachan, and they played in a great team. They were a great team when they won the league.
Howard Wilkinson.
Aye, but they were a great team as well. They had great players, you know. It was funny years ago when Billy got asked the question. I said, you know, we were at doing, somebody says to Billy, and Billy was a character, you know. Somebody says to Billy, your team, how do you think it got on against Howard's team? They were a great team. And Billy thought for a minute and went, I think it'd be tough, he says. I think we beat them 1-0. So and he says to Billy, why only one? Why no 2 or 3? Billy says, listen, you've got to remember, we're on 50 now. True story.
Fair enough, can't argue with that. How's Parag as a person? Is he quite astute? Is he
well, obviously he's astute, but he's a nice fella, you know.
Aye.
You know, my wife and I, we get into the boardroom for every game. You know, the club treat me well here, very well. You know, we get in the boardroom before every game, and it's the same when we get away from home, you know. And you mix with them. They're so enthusiastic about the game and the club. I think, funny enough, you know, when you come to a game here, and before the game, you know, even for me now, when they start singing "Marching On Together," I mean, last night the atmosphere is just electric. You know, and like, you know, the hair still stand up in the back of the neck. You know.
Do you think the Rangers fans are entitled to be excited about what's coming once the takeover's kind of completed?
I think, you know,
knowing what you do,
I think that the people at the football club here, they're successful people, and they want to continue that success.
However, that said, being a Celtic man,
well,
you will feel confident that Celtic will still remain top, I'm sure.
Well, Celtic always manage to just do something that just keeps them there.
You'll have a big regard for the people at Celtic, of course.
Oh yeah, I mean, but you know, what you've got to remember is, you know, like, the Celtic and Rangers are two of the biggest clubs in the world if you look at the support.
Yeah.
You know, there's no doubt about it. And, you know, like, if Rangers get things right, I mean, when I was growing up, you know, as a young kid, Celtic hardly won anything.
No.
You know, no, it's like changed.
But you think it's good, though, if both of them become strong? Then it really becomes fantastic, doesn't it?
I think it's great. I mean, when you look back, you know, when Celtic, you know, won the European Cup, Rangers won the Cup Winners' Cup.
Yeah,
you know?
phenomenal.
You know, that's the power you want in the game. I think that when it was, you know, when it was a level playing field, you know, what I mean by that is it wasn't a Premier League, there wasn't no money in England, there was much money in Scotland then, and Celtic and Rangers could hold their own with anybody. You know, when you actually think of all the big competitions that have been in this country, you know, the Coronation Cup, the Empire Exhibition Cup, the first European Cup, the Cup Winners' Cup, Celtic and Rangers won them first. You know, but just the money in the Premier League, I mean, I think that's been the one thing that has rejuvenated the game down here.
Yeah.
And I think the thing is, it was the naming of the league, the Premier League. It made it sound good. You know, and so I think everybody thinks that, you know, in the world now, that's the Premier League in the world.
How do you feel about Celtic these days? Do you enjoy watching them? You're up in January with Big Roy Aitken?
Yeah, I got up to Roy a few times, yeah. Oh,
The Champions League?
Yeah, I still watch the Celtic, you know. I watched them at the weekend, you know, on the telly.
Enjoy watching them?
Oh, yeah. Oh, I always enjoy watching them.
Who do you like?
Yeah.
As somebody who was a supreme entertainer, Eddie, and an extremely talented player, who do you like in the current Celtic side?
Do you know how I think it's been a top player, a captain?
Callum?
Yeah. I think it keeps things going for him all the time.
He is a top captain, isn't he?
You've got to have somebody like that.
Yeah, good player. Very good player.
We had two players that were brilliant, like in the middle of the park, Giles and Bremner, you know, and the two of them, as well as being top midfield players. You know, it's funny, they're probably two best midfield players I've ever played with. The two of them scored exactly the same number of goals for the club, you know, for the middle of the park. 115 goals each.
Wow.
For midfield.
That's astonishing, isn't it?
It is.
It's
When
astonishing.
you actually think two midfield players, so you're talking about a 10-year period, your two midfield players are scoring you know, like 230 goals between them. You know?
So I'm guessing you're loving Celtic's domination at the moment, Eddie.
Oh, I always like to see Celtic doing well. Yeah.
So Leeds United are about to officially clinch the championship. Celtic have won the title. That's perfect for
It's
you,
good.
Eddie, isn't
Yeah,
it?
it's good.
Is that
Yeah.
perfect year? It's a perfect
good,
year.
you know.
Aye.
It's terrific. I mean, the thing about here, I mean, the most important thing for us, well, you'd like to win a title, but it wasn't just about winning the title. It was getting back into the big league.
Everywhere we go here, Eddie's recognised. There's a club tour at the moment. They're all waving at Eddie.
Yeah, all the
Legend. That's nice.
Yeah,
That's
oh,
nice.
yeah.
It's,
I mean, the funny thing is, you know, like people realise, you know. In fact, I think I've started to realise since Leeds United went out the big league, what a big club it is. You know.
The Premier League.
Everybody's wanting them back in. You know,
the Premier League needs Leeds United.
Yeah, it does. I think so.
It's a sensational ground. And
it's great.
They've just announced plans to actually, I think, the building top tiers. Yeah,
there'll be about 55,000. You know, but even standing here, it's a nice stadium.
It's fantastic.
Yeah, it's a nice stadium.
Absolutely fantastic. But
and it's funny, you know, like when I first came here, did it in '63. We used to clean the ground and sweep the terraces. There was no stand there. That was just a terrace. There's all just nothing behind it. This stand wasn't here either. There's all the kids. It's great for all these kids. They do these tours down there, run all the time with school kids. And they come and
it's the future, isn't it?
Aye,
it's the future fans, isn't it?
And they get asked things. Do you want to walk into here?
We'll carry on here. We'll carry on round here, Eddie.
It's great that the kids come down like this, you know, and teachers bring them down, you know, and the kids can sit and they can ask questions, you know, to the teachers, and can walk up, they'll be walking about the dressing room and seeing all the players.
That's fantastic,
things,
isn't it?
You know, it's good, yeah.
It's absolutely fantastic.
Yeah.
So I mean, Don Revie is just such a huge figure.
Yeah, in this club, yeah.
Incredible times, but see, when I was doing a bit of research on Eddie, Brian Clough, and you can tell me if this quote was true, he's addressed the squad, and unfortunately when he came in, you'd had a few fitness issues, to say the least. He turns around to you apparently and says, if you'd been a horse, I'd have shot you a long time ago. Is that what he said to you?
Yeah.
How did you take that?
I just laughed at him. You know, he was daft anyway, Brian.
Is this in front of the squad?
Yeah. But the squad didn't like it. It didn't bother me. Because I went up and left him. I says to him, I says, how did you finish your career? He says, injury. I says, all right then. Enough said. Because he get finished with an injury, you know. He was a top player, you know, Cloughie.
See to be that to be said to you in front of everyone. A lot of players would have just, you know, they would have hated that, they would have cringed, but did you just take it?
I didn't bother me.
It
didn't bother me.
You didn't take it as a disrespect or anything?
No. Cloughie was Cloughie. I mean, my brother played for him. My brother won the European Cup with him, Frank, you know.
Of course.
And I'd say to him, what was his big secret? He said, Frank says, just popping his hood. He'd run the door before every game. And they looked at him and they'd go, see all you hod carriers in here. When you get the ball, just give it to the little fat boy. You know who that was? Robbo, John Robbo.
Give it to the little fat boy. And he never took that as a disrespect, did he?
No, John was a great player.
He was a phenomenal player.
John was one of the great players, you know. He is, funny enough, I got asked to pick my British top 10, or top 11, you know, and I picked Robbo in it. I think Robbo was a great player. But you know, obviously here, you know, I played with truly great players. I mean, at one time here, I mean, we had 14 one time full international players on the books.
I've quoted Brian Clough to you there, but there was a magnificent quote from Don Revie, Eddie, which I thought, it was an amazing compliment. When Eddie plays in snow, he doesn't leave footprints.
Yeah.
I mean, that just says it all. Yeah.
It doesn't work, but I tried it.
I was watching footage of you coming down and YouTube.
Yeah.
Eddie Gray, The Last Waltz, some of the footage is astounding. You watch the Burnley goal, but I think there's almost like George Best-esque elements there. You weave your way through, you finish.
Yeah. I mean,
were you just an off-the-cuff player? Did anyone teach you that?
No. I'd say, funny enough, when I first came down here, you know, when I was younger, I mean, I played left half for the Scottish Schoolboys. That was my position. I played as a midfield player. When I first played for the club, you know, I played in the middle of the park, you know, as a midfield player. I made my debut when I was 17 against Sheffield here. We beat them 3-0. I managed to score that day as well. But I was playing in the middle of the park, just an out-and-out midfield player. But what happened is, Don, we had an outside left who was a really good player in the second division called Albert Johansson. He was a black boy. And at that particular time, there wasn't many black players playing.
No.
And Albert used to get a bit of, you know, he was a great lad, Albert, you know. And Don just says, I'm a bit worried about Albert that he'll not be able to take it in the big league. Would you ever go playing outside left? I never played outside left in my life. I says, I'll play outside left. So that's where it started. I played outside left. But I always considered myself a frustrated midfield player.
But where did you get your skills from, Eddie? Did you just teach them yourself out in the streets, playing with your pals?
Well, I played in the streets all the time in Castlemilk, where, you know, basically where I grew up.
Aye.
I was up in Castlemilk last week. I opened a new community centre up in Castlemilk.
Brilliant. Brilliant.
And
how much else did you recognise at Castlemilk?
Oh, so I went back to the old place, Cavan Drive. You know, where I said that was one of the first places built in Castlemilk, Cavan Drive, just at the Croftfoot Road. So that's where I grew up. And we used to play in the streets, getting chased with the police for playing football in the streets. You know, that happened all the time. You know.
Aye. But I mean, I think your ability, you know...
I had to go up to court once, playing football in the streets.
Really?
Yeah. How stupid is that?
You didn't get done though, did you?
No, the judge just laughed at it.
The judge just dismissed it instantly, aye?
Yeah. Yeah.
Deary,
But I mean,
deary
that
me.
was that, you know, playing, because in the days, there wasn't a lot of grass about to play, you know.
Aye.
Yeah. And if there was grass, it was across the road in Kings Park, and the Kings Park was quite posh compared to Castlemilk, you know. And they didn't like you playing on the grass, you know, they wanted the grass to be neat.
See when you're voted in the greatest ever Leeds team,
Yeah.
the greatest goal,
Yeah.
you're in the top 3 greatest players. See when you then become manager of Leeds,
Yeah.
how heavily is that on your shoulders? How heavily?
I
I mean, and
didn't-
you did it twice,
I
didn't you?
didn't find it heavy at all, you know. I mean, I've got to say I enjoyed it. You know, I look back, you could have been more successful, you know. But we had a group of young players, you know, when I came here, and they all went on to do well, you know, like a lot of them went on to
Dennis
do well.
Irwin,
Dennis
Scott
Irwin,
Sellers.
Scott Sellers, John Sheridan,
John Sheridan.
Woodgate. I mean, Woodgate played centre half for England when he was 19.
I think when you came back a second spell,
Yeah.
there was Woodgate, there was Alan Smith,
Yeah, Alan, yeah.
Harry Kuehl.
Yeah, Harry, yeah.
Yeah, which is, you know, testament.
Kuehl was some player.
Yeah.
He was a terrific player. He came out here on his own, you know, when he was 15 for Australia. And as soon as we seen him play, we knew he'd be a top player. He had tremendous ability. And Woodgate was just a great centre-half, you know what I mean.
Ian Hart was another one, I think.
Oh,
Ian
yeah,
Hart.
Ian Hart. When you think of Woodgate playing centre-half for England when he was 19, not many people did that.
Do you feel that was your biggest legacy as manager over 2 spells, the young players, the young top players that you brought through?
Well, probably giving them the opportunity to play and encouraging them to play. Yeah, I look back on that and think, yeah, okay. And a lot of these boys, I mean, they went on to have great careers. I mean, Dennis won, I think, 9 league championships with Man United, you know. And John Sheridan obviously was the great player, and Woodgate, terrific. Kuehl, obviously, he was, you know, when Kuehl was on song, he was some player.
Was there any elements of Don Revie that you tried to implement yourself as a manager? Or was it just impossible?
No, really.
Just have to be yourself.
Exactly what you says there. You couldn't actually try and emulate Don. Don was, you know, he, as a manager, you know, I still think he would have been the best. And it's funny, when he, you know, like, I think a lot of the managers then, when they were young, you know, like starting out, I think Shankly, Don, they all went to see Matt Busby, you know. I say Matt Busby was a man. He taught them how to run a football club, how to treat directors, you know. And when you actually think about managers, Matt Busby was probably the first superstar manager.
Yeah, then you obviously Jock Stein and Bill Shankly.
Jock went to see him as well, I think.
Yeah,
Busby.
yeah.
You know, I think
learn.
Jock was here. Jock came here, but only 40 days, you know. I think Jock came here actually. I mean, no disrespect. Jock was brilliant, but no disrespect to him. I think Jock just come down here to force the SF his
hand for the national team job.
Aye, full time, no part time, because then it was part time.
But for you, given your Celtic allegiances, how was it that still to be involved with Jock here?
Oh, it was great. I mean, Jock was terrific. I think Jock was only here basically the same number of days as Cloughy, 44 days. They were, you know.
Aye.
But Jock, even though he was here for a short period of time, he put a mark on the club. And funny enough, in a different way, so did Brian.
Aye. Well, a more negative way, Brian.
Yeah.
I'm guessing you prefer Jock's stint here than Brian's.
Aye. I mean, but, you know, when you actually think about it, you know, you're talking about, you know, 3 of the best managers I've ever managed, all managing the same club. Jock, you know, Brian and Don.
Did Jock say anything to you during his stint here that's always stayed with you? Was there any pearls of wisdom?
Jock was very astute, you know, and it was very... Jock would just say things as it were, you know, just, right, this is how it's going to be. And he encouraged players to play. Jock encouraged players. You know, when I think back to the Celtic European Cup team, you can imagine how Jock would have just been saying to them, I said, you've got the ability in the world, just get and destroy them, you know. You know, that'd be Jock, you know.
Aye. He would have loved you as a player.
Oh, yeah.
I mean...
you know, I got on well with Jock, although he was only here 40-odd days. You know, we got on well. But, see, the thing about it is like, you know, great respect for him for what he did in the game. That's it, you know.
Yeah.
He was right up there, you know, with the greatest managers that have ever managed, you know, the Busbys, the Shankleys, the Revies, you know, the Jock was there. The Jock was right up there.
So even though it was just a short period, you still regarded that as a kind of privilege?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
To play under Jock Stein, yeah, definitely. I mean, you know, his record in football was tremendous, you know. I mean, even, you know, as a player at Celtic, you know, and, you know, he played at Celtic, then he goes away and he comes back, and the success they had.
Yeah. I think your whole time here, Eddie, is just phenomenal. The people, the managers, your teammates, the experiences.
I mean, I've got to say, I mean, when I first come down here, as you know, I was 15. I could have went anywhere, but I was so impressed with the manager. And I can honestly say, I've not regretted one day coming here, even though I was a Celtic supporter.
Eddie, what a playing career. I mean, see when you look at players now and the money that's in the game, guys earning 6 figures a week with nowhere near the ability you had. Is there any envy? Is there any kind of bitterness?
Not at all. I mean, I just was fortunate enough to play the game. I mean, when I come down here in 1963 when I was 15, it was just a pleasure to play. And the thing about it is, you know, like, through my career here, you know, played at a top level, played with great players, some of the greatest players that I've ever played the game. And then obviously going on to coach a club, manage a club. I'm still at the club as an ambassador for the club. It's just been a great life, you know, like, I had no regrets. As soon as I walked through the door here in 1963, I've never had one regret about coming to the club.
You went to Eintracht Frankfurt, Real Madrid, European Cup final at Hampden. Were you 13, 14 then, Eddie?
I was young then, yeah.
You were young then?
Yeah, younger than that.
What impression did that leave in you? Can you still remember all the players?
I can remember the forward line: Canario, Del Sol, Di Stefano, Puskas and Hento. The players that impressed you most were obviously Alfredo, Di Stefano and Puskas. I mean, they were just unbelievable players. But, you know, I ended up playing against Canario for Leeds, European game. But when you actually looked at that team, you know, like, I think, you know, it's funny when you're growing up, you look at that team and they were a great team. But when I was growing up, nearly every Scottish boy wanted to be Denis Law.
And why not?
Why not?
And why
you
not?
Know,
yeah.
You know, because Denis come down to England, you know what he'd done in the game, and, you know, his attitude towards the game, his flamboyance and his brilliance, you know. I mean, like, when you look at the Manchester United players at that time, you know, you've got Dennis and you've got George Best and Bobby Charlton. Bobby's the best British player I've seen.
That's an accolade.
Yeah, he's the best British player I've seen. He was some player.
I mean, you were a fabulous winger, essentially left-footed, decent with your right, the tricks, dazzling. Who taught you that?
Yeah, but the funny thing about that was, I mean, I was never a left winger. I was a midfield player. When I played with the Glasgow Schoolboys when I was a kid, and, you know, when I was 13, and played with the Scottish Schoolboys when I was 15, I played left half. I was, you know, number 6 in my back, you know, and that was it. And, you know, quite a funny story. The last schoolboy international game I played, I was picked to play, and it was against, I was playing Northern Ireland at Ibrox, and I'd signed for Leeds before I'd left school, which was illegal. And Don told me to put it in a drawer and wouldn't register me. But he registered me before the last schoolboy game because he panicked. And so I gets to the hotel in Glasgow, and on the Friday night, Don come up to the house, and my mum says to Don, she calls me Edwin, if Edwin doesn't play tomorrow, he's not going to Leeds. And Don says to her, don't worry, he'll play. I'm guaranteeing he'll play. So I get to the hotel in Glasgow and meet the Scottish schoolboy team before the game. And I get called into a room with our selectors. And they're there, and it says, Gray, is it true that you've signed for Leeds United? I says, yes. They says to me, you know the consequences? I says, yes. So what happened, I get to Ibrox, and I get into the dressing room, and I played number 6 in the days, left half. So I'm thinking I'm not playing. So I'm standing an hour before the game, number 6 is there. Half an hour before the game, number 6 is still there. 15 minutes before the game, Nedved says, and I went in, put the shirt on and went out and played. Don says to me, my mum, I told you you'd played, didn't I? No, I don't know if he crossed palms with him, you know, he did. And then he says to my mum, he says, I'll tell you something else, this isn't a Friday. He's leaving school on Monday morning after the game. Mum says, I can't leave school. He doesn't leave school to June. This is only at beginning of May, last schoolboy again. He says he's leaving school on Monday morning, have his bags packed. Comes up to the house at 8 o'clock on Monday morning, says to me, where's your school? So I take him down to the Lane St Margaret's in Cannon Park. Where's your headmaster's office? So I take him up to the headmaster's office, says, wait out here. Literally a minute later, the headmaster comes out, shakes my hand and says, all the best in your new career, Gray. And I went straight down to Leeds End. Never sat in the exams or anything.
Never looked back.
No, that's true. That's what he did, you know. So I don't know how he done it, but Don was a shrewd operator.
Almost 600 games later.
Yeah.
69 goals.
Yeah.
League.
Yeah.
FA Cup, League Cup.
Yeah.
2 Fair Cities Cups, Charity Shield.
Yeah.
Not bad.
It's good. Yeah, it's good. But the only thing about that is, what I've got to say, I mean, I played with great players.
Well, I was going to ask you about that Leeds United team. I mean, Billy Bremner.
Yeah,
Billy
was a great player.
I mean,
Giles was some player.
Aye.
He's the best player I played with, Giles. Giles was a genius. Not only for the point of view of his technical ability, but his ability to read the game and sort out where we could hurt teams. Right away, 5 minutes after the game started, they'd be telling us where we can hurt teams and where they could hurt us.
But Johnny Giles could also look after himself, couldn't he?
Oh, John, yeah, so could Billy.
well.
Yeah, John was very shrewd. I still speak to John. He lives in the Midlands because he went to, you know, when he went to manage West Brom. I went down a night for him. They had a tribute night to John not that long ago at West Brom, so I went down and I still speak to him. I would say that all the players I've ever played with, Giles was the best player.
That's a hell of an accolade as well.
And I played with great players.
See, when you're in that Leeds United dressing room, tell me, see when you're looking around at the iconic names, Jack Charlton, Norman Hunter, Giles.
Well, that's what I was just going to say to you. When I was sitting in the dressing room before the game,
Alan Clark,
and I was looking around the dressing room, I used to think to myself, this is true, no way we can get beat today.
I can imagine.
And it was a great feeling to have that before you get, because there's so many great players. I mean, you know, like every player that was sitting in the dressing room was an international player. They all played for their countries. And you mentioned a few there, but they were all great players, you know. Like, you know, there's a player that it doesn't get a lot of mentions, but he was one of the greatest players ever, Paul Madeley. Paul played there 700 games for their club.
Yeah.
He played everywhere.
But he was overshadowed.
Yeah, he played right back, centre back, and he was just a sort of a unsung hero. But to me, he was one of the great players, Madeley.
How did you feel when the likes of Brian Clough, particularly, and others would dismiss Leeds as a hardman team, cloggers, won football the wrong way? They would say.
No, it was stupid. I mean, it was just jealousy. I mean, we could outplay any team. I mean, I remember a couple of games here we had here in 2 weeks. We beat Southampton 7 and beat Man United 5.
Yeah. A Man U team with
the top players.
The Holy Trinity.
Yeah, no. There's a great photo of Peter and I in that game. We're standing at the corner flag here, just down here, and we're looking at each other as if to say, this is so easy. you know, it's a great photo. I've got it at my house.
I mean, see, when we look at the pitch here, Eddie, it's phenomenal for this stage of the season.
Yeah.
But when I think back to the pitches that you played in.
Yeah, it would be mud all the way across the pitch. It'd be just a sort of the four corners of the pitch would be grass in, or the middle of the pitch would be mud. The worst ground to play in a lot then was the old baseball ground at
Derby County.
Oh, that was just like a mud heap. But that's what you had to cope with then. It was the same for all the players.
Aye.
So you put up with it. I mean, but when you played in grass, it felt as if it was tremendous.
I look at the players of your era, phenomenal players, obviously, Best, Law, Charlton, Franny Lee, Nicky Summerby, Frank Worthington. Yeah. But on the other side of it, Eddie, I think of some of the hard men there.
Oh, yeah.
Ron Chopper Harris immediately comes to mind. You obviously had Norman Hunter. better player than he was given credit for. You.
Norman was a great player.
Norman was a great player.
footballer, yeah.
But did these guys, these hatchet men, did they ever terrorise you, or did you just want to terrorise them?
Yeah, they never frightened me in any way before you're going to, they would try and kick you, you know that. But football's always been like that. When I started playing, you're like, going to get the ball, and these players aren't going to let you just drift by them without putting a physical challenge in. So you accept that.
You must have suffered some brutal tackles.
Oh, you get some bad tackles, yeah, but it was part of the game. I mean, some of the challenges when I played, you wouldn't get away with now, with the VAR and the cameras everywhere.
But see what I think's even, I mean, extraordinary career, Eddie, but you never were booked, were you?
No, I never get booked, no.
How the hell did you manage to get through a career in these pitches? The attention you would have got without
retaliating.
Without retaliating.
Yeah, it just wasn't in my nature.
Really?
Yeah.
That's extraordinary.
Yeah, I know. I never thought. I had the mentality, it's not going to do any good if you retaliate. The best way for me to retaliate would get the ball and get by him again.
Be honest, did you have a wee kick off the ball yourself now and again?
Well, you had a couple of challenges, but nothing that would merit getting sent off or anything like that.
Aye.
I mean, I played in a team that if clubs wanted a physical battle, we could more than match them. If they wanted to play pure football, we could do that as well.
Yeah. Billy Bremner. I mean,
Billy was a great player.
Give me some of your favourite memories of Billy.
Billy. Well, one favourite memory is we used to go for lunch every day across to Sheila's Cafe. And we used to toss up for lunch. Scottish boy lost, he'd have a cup of tea. English boy lost, 3-course lunch. 2 Kit Kats and 2 Kit Kats to take in for the kids. Billy was a character. But see, that was the one thing that Don Revie did that I think was genius, making Billy captain. Because he wouldn't have said Billy was the ideal captain material.
In what sense?
For the point of view how he was. It was outlandish at times. It wouldn't have been, say, like a Bobby Moore type, like captain, that type of captain. Billy probably led the example. I mean, he's one of the greatest players that's ever played the game.
But I was going to say, would it be harsh not to call him a model pro, if you know what I mean? That you'd want him always in your team, but in terms of off the park, would you?
No, you'd want Billy in your team all the time.
Of course.
Yeah, but you would say there would be more model pros in our team than Billy.
Aye.
I think that was Billy's nature.
And I don't mean that in any way disparaging.
No.
Just how he maybe lived his life away from it.
Yeah, because that's what made Billy.
But put him in a pitch, he was phenomenal.
Yeah, Billy was a character.
Yeah.
And that I think that was a touch of a genius of Don, making Billy captain.
Yeah.
But on the pitch, Billy would lead by example.
Yeah.
Whether it's Giles would be the general, in the midfield, and he would dictate how we would play.
You would follow Billy anywhere.
Yeah.
If he would lead you. Yeah. I mean, a team full of formidable characters, Eddie. I mean,
well, international players. I mean, that was the thing, and it probably helped the team in a way. I mean, for 9-10 years, everybody you're playing with is an international player. So there's no jealousy within the squad. He's playing international football, I'm not playing international football. I mean, every international break, there's nobody at the club or players away playing international games, And I think that helped as well. I mean, the players, they all knew that they were playing with people as much or the same amount of talent that they had. They were all playing for their countries, and there was no jealousy within the squad because we knew we were all playing with top players.
Who were your, back in the 60s and the kind of 70s, who were your favourite Celtic players? I'm guessing Jinky Johnson.
Jimmy.
Yeah.
Bobby.
Yeah.
Bobby Murdoch.
Yeah.
But when I was younger, growing up, I was a huge fan of Willie Fernie. Yeah. I used to like Willie's style of play and how he got the ball and dribbling by people. I used to like Willie Fernie. So,
European Cup semi-final.
Yeah.
Leeds United Celtic.
Yeah.
How was that for you? Obviously, from a team point of view, the results didn't go your way.
No,
Celtic won home and away.
Yeah.
But for the whole emotional experience for you?
Oh, well, it was.
Celtic made you as well.
It was, when you actually think of
the game at Hampden, you know, the second game, you know, Celtic, you know, 137,000 that game.
It's staggering.
There's about 2,000 Leeds supporters. You know. I think they got Celtic supporters for the world for that game, you know. It was just amazing. Yeah, for me it was, I mean, the funny thing about that game is like, we were in the dressing room at Hampden and Big Jack and Norman, you know, the experienced boys, they're sitting there and the roof is vibrating, you know, with the noise.
Incredible.
With the noise.
Incredible.
So they were looking at each other just to say, what's this, you know?
Aye.
That's probably the best atmosphere I've ever played under. I don't think there'll ever have been a game where the atmosphere's better. And basically it was all one-sided.
But then Billy scores. Great goal.
Yeah.
Was that the quietest you'd
Yeah,
ever
it
heard
was
that?
quietest. He just went silent. You know, it was a great goal, Billy's. But
Amazing
Celtic come back into the game, obviously, and you know, win the game, probably deservedly win the game. But as games of football, you know, there were two classic games. They were two great games, two of the greatest games ever. And there was always that confrontation, Scotland against England, you know, and it was. The top team in Scotland, top team in England, Celtic come out on top. But, you know, we played at Celtic Park one day and we beat them in a friendly. I think there was about 70,000 there that day, the friendly game, you know. So, yeah, they're great memories. Yeah, obviously, you're disappointed you don't win the game. But what you've got to remember then, you know, Celtic, it was more a level playing field then.
Yeah.
You know, like Celtic could keep their players and kept the top players. Well,
Yeah.
I mean, you imagine now, you know, when Jimmy Johnson spent all his career at Celtic Park in the open era, you know, like when he could move to, you know, the Premier League, and it's changed football like that.
The thing is, guys like, you know, players like Jimmy Johnson, the players, yourself, Johnny Giles, see when you look at transfer market valuations, what values would they have now in the current? I mean, when you look at what some players are going for now, Eddie, how would you value them?
If you know, Jimmy Johnson, you just couldn't put a price on him, and Giles was just a genius. I mean, you know, these players would be priced out of the market, I think. You know. So I mean, it was an era where, you know, like I look at the Celtic players that played around about that time. You know, the two centre backs, Billy and John Clark. You know, and big Tommy Gemmell. You know, Tommy was a top player. You know. Then you're looking at Bobby in the middle of the park, and Bertie. Bertie could play, and Bertie could look after himself. yeah. You know, you talk about a hard man, and you know, players that I played with, I don't think they'd ever get the better of Bertie.
See, when you reflect, Eddie, do you feel privileged that you played in the era that you did with those kinds of players and those kinds of teams and occasions?
I've no regrets about my career at all. I mean, I came to Leeds when I was 15, 1963. I got in the team when I was 17, and from then on, all the way through, you know, played with great players. You know, and it's just a pleasure. Yeah, it's a pleasure to still be involved in the club and seeing them back in the big league now.
Well, player, coach, twice a manager, you're now ambassador. It's fantastic. And it's great to see the club give you such respect.
Yeah, I would never imagine. I'd never have imagined when I came here as a 15-year-old boy, you know, how things would have worked out. I thought things would work out well, because when I came here, I only came here because of one man, and I had great faith in him, Don Revie. You know, I just thought that he was such a powerful character. His awareness, his knowledge of the game, his history in the game. I think it was only going to go one way here with Don.
I wonder if, I mean, you say you had no regrets, only 12 Scotland caps.
Yeah.
That I think people will be amazed about.
Yeah.
Back then, Scotland didn't play as many games as they do now, but nevertheless, it seems a paltry amount.
Yeah, it does.
But
I couldn't play 2 games a week then. I got a bad thigh injury when I was 15.
Aye.
And that hindered my career. I mean, if I wouldn't have had the thigh injury that I had, and it troubled me all the way through my career, if I was a young kid, I would have played over 1,000 games for the team, you know, because I played for a long time. And I played my last game when I was 37, nearly 38, and I'd get in the team when I was 17. So I've played a lot more games if it wouldn't have been for my thigh injury. I've got to say, I'd have been a lot better player if I wouldn't have my thigh injury, you know.
Still did all right, Eddie.
I did all right, but I would have been a better player. That's one regret. I got this thigh injury because I don't think I had the opportunity to really play that I consider with my best football. Although it was okay, you know. For me, inside me, I know I would have been a better player.
Well, Eddie, I still regard you as a proper football
Yeah,
legend,
yeah.
and it's been wonderful discussing your career.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for the time you've given us.
Thank you.
Wish you the best.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you very
Thank you,
much.
Eddie.
Thank you.